Marcus Reed's boots echoed against the metal deck plates of Starbase 47's commercial district, his mind focused on the stack of unpaid maintenance bills threatening to ground his cargo ship. The aging freighter, Star Wanderer, was all he had left after a decade of struggling to survive as an independent merchant in space controlled by massive trading corporations. The dimly lit corridor ahead branched into a maze of vendor stalls and repair shops, their neon signs casting multicolored shadows across the station's worn floors. The air carried the usual mix of recycled oxygen and various alien cuisines from the nearby food court. But something else caught Marcus's attention, the sound of a struggle coming from one of the maintenance access corridors. He hesitated. Getting involved in station business was asking for trouble. But the sound of something small hitting the deck plates, followed by a child's frightened cry, made the decision for him. Marcus turned down the corridor, his hand instinctively moving to the small stunner concealed beneath his jacket. The scene that greeted him made his blood run cold. Two massive Draken mercenaries, reptilian warriors known for their brutality, had cornered what appeared to be a child. The small figure's iridescent blue skin marked them as Calarian, though Marcus had never seen one this young before. The child clutched a small crystalline object to their chest, cowering as one of the Drakens reached for them with scaled claws. "That's far enough," Marcus called out, drawing his stunner. The Drakens turned, their amber eyes narrowing as they assessed this new threat. The larger one, his scales scarred from countless battles, let out a low hiss. "This doesn't concern you, human. Walk away." Marcus held his ground, stunner steady. "When I see two adults threatening a kid, it becomes my concern. How about you both back off, and we pretend this never happened?" The Drakens exchanged looks, a silent communication passing between them. The scarred one spoke again, "The child carries something that belongs to our employer. Hand it over, little one, and no one needs to get hurt." The young Calarian's voice trembled but carried a strange authority despite their fear. "It was my father's. I won't let you take it." Something in the child's voice struck Marcus, a familiar pain of loss he recognized all too well. Without warning, the smaller Draken lunged forward, trying to snatch the crystal. Marcus fired, the stunner's beam catching the mercenary in the chest. The Draken stumbled, his nervous system temporarily overloaded. The scarred leader roared, drawing a vicious-looking blade. Marcus dove forward, tackling the child out of the way as the weapon sliced through the air where they had been standing. He rolled to his feet, pushing the young Calarian behind him. "Run," he shouted, firing another stun blast to force the Draken back. The child hesitated for just a moment before darting down the corridor. The scarred mercenary snarled in frustration, torn between pursuing and dealing with Marcus. That moment of indecision was all Marcus needed. He fired twice more in rapid succession, catching the Draken in the shoulder and chest. The massive warrior staggered, fighting the stunner's effects before finally collapsing. Marcus didn't wait around. He sprinted after the child, hearing shouts and the sound of running feet behind him as station security finally responded to the disturbance. He caught up to the young Calarian at a junction of corridors. "This way," he said, gesturing toward the commercial district. "I know a place we can lay low until security sweeps the area." The child studied him with striking silver eyes that seemed to glow from within. "Why did you help me?" Marcus shrugged, keeping an eye on the corridor behind them. "Because it was the right thing to do. I'm Marcus." "I am Kira," the child replied with formal gravity. "And you have done far more than simply help me, Marcus of Earth. You have altered the fate of worlds." Before Marcus could respond to that cryptic statement, a dozen figures materialized around them, their armor gleaming with the same iridescent blue as Kira's skin. They moved with fluid grace, weapons ready but not aimed at Marcus. One stepped forward and knelt before the child. "Young Sovereign, we have secured the station. You are safe now." Marcus felt his jaw drop as Kira stepped forward, suddenly seeming far older than they had appeared moments before. The crystal in their hands began to glow, casting patterns of light that the armored warriors seemed to recognize, causing them to bow deeply. "Rise," Kira commanded, then turned to Marcus. "You saved not just a child today, but the last heir of the Calarian Empire. Among my people, such a debt can never be ignored. From this moment forward, you and I are bound by the most sacred of our laws, the life debt of the stars." Marcus stood there, stunned, as the reality of what he had stumbled into began to sink in. He had only wanted to help a child in danger. Instead, he had somehow become entangled in what appeared to be an interstellar power struggle. As the armored warriors formed a protective circle around them, Marcus wondered just how much his simple act of kindness was about to change his life, and possibly the fate of an entire empire. The gleaming hulls of the Calarian warship, Celestial Dawn, were unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. Crystal-like structures pulsed with living light, responding to the crew's movements as they passed. He followed Kira and their honor guard through corridors that seemed to sing with barely contained energy, trying to process the events of the last few hours. "I still don't understand," Marcus said, watching as a door materialized from what had appeared to be solid wall. "What exactly is a life debt of the stars?" Kira turned to face him, their silver eyes reflecting the ambient light. Though they appeared as a child to human eyes, there was ancient wisdom in their gaze. "Our people believe that when one saves a life, they become responsible for the path that life takes thereafter. When you saved me, you took on the weight of my destiny." They entered what appeared to be a command center, though it bore little resemblance to any bridge Marcus had seen. Instead of conventional control panels, crystalline formations grew from the floor and walls, each staffed by Calarians who manipulated energy fields with graceful gestures. A tall Calarian warrior approached, his armor bearing intricate patterns that seemed to shift and flow. "Young sovereign, the fleet awaits your word. We have confirmed that the Draken mercenaries were working for the Shadowclave." Kira's expression hardened, making them look centuries older. "Then we were right. The usurpers still hunt us." Marcus held up his hands. "Hold on. Shadowclave? Usurpers? I feel like I'm missing some crucial information here." The warrior turned to him, studying him with intense golden eyes. "I am Commander Thane. 3 cycles ago, a faction within our empire known as the Shadowclave orchestrated a coup. They murdered the royal family, all except for the young sovereign here, and seized control of our major worlds. Those who remained loyal to the true throne have been fighting a guerrilla war ever since," another officer added. "Protecting the heir while gathering strength for a counterattack." Marcus ran a hand through his hair. "And I just got involved in all this by stopping 2 thugs in a corridor." "The life debt is more than mere involvement," Thane said solemnly. "By our most ancient laws, you now hold the rank of Star Guardian, protector of the royal heir and commander of the Loyalist fleet." Marcus laughed, then realized no one else was joining in. "You can't be serious. I'm a cargo hauler, not a military commander." "The stars choose their own champions," Kira said softly. "The crystal I carry, the heart of Kyler, responds to more than just royal blood. It recognizes worth that goes deeper than titles or training." As if in response, the crystal in Kira's hands pulsed with blue-white light. The energy spread through the room's crystalline structures, creating a stunning display of interconnected patterns. The Calarian crew members bowed their heads in recognition. "The heart has accepted you," Thane said, something like awe in his voice. "It hasn't responded to an outsider like this since the founding of our empire." Marcus watched the dancing lights, feeling something stir deep within him. The pattern seemed familiar somehow, as if they were speaking to him in a language he hadn't known he could understand. "I still think this is crazy," he said finally. "But I also can't walk away knowing there's a kid being hunted by murderers. So what exactly does this Star Guardian position entail?" Kira smiled, looking like a child again for just a moment. "You will help us reclaim our home. The Loyalist fleet consists of 17 warships and their support vessels. They are now yours to command, alongside Commander Thane and our other military leaders. 17 warships. Marcus whistled. That's more firepower than most planetary defense forces. But what makes you think I can actually lead them? Because you have already shown the quality we value most, Thane replied. The willingness to stand against impossible odds to protect those who cannot protect themselves. The rest can be taught. Before Marcus could respond, alarms blared throughout the ship. A young officer's hands danced through the energy field at their station. Multiple ships emerging from hyperspace. Shadowclave signatures confirmed. They must have followed the Draken's signal, Thane growled. Young Sovereign, we must get you to safety. But Kira stood their ground, looking to Marcus. What are your orders, Star Guardian? Marcus felt the weight of every eye in the command center. Part of him wanted to run, to get back to his simple life of cargo runs and quiet anonymity. But as he looked at Kira, saw the trust in those ancient young eyes, he knew he couldn't. He stepped forward, studying the tactical display formed by floating points of light. What's the status of the rest of the fleet? All ships at battle stations, Thane reported. Awaiting your command. Marcus took a deep breath, his mind already forming a plan. He might not be a military commander, but he had spent years navigating the dangerous space lanes as a merchant. He knew how to think creatively, how to use limited resources to maximum effect. All right then, he said, straightening his shoulders. Let's show these usurpers what happens when they threaten the wrong people. Commander Thane, I have an idea. Marcus watched the holographic display as the Shadowclave ships approached in attack formation. 5 heavy cruisers, each bristling with weapons that could tear through conventional shields like paper. Under normal circumstances, he would have ordered an immediate retreat. But these weren't normal circumstances. Status of the asteroid field, he asked, keeping his voice steady despite the tension building in his chest. Thane manipulated the energy field controls, highlighting a dense cluster of space rocks. As you suspected, the mineral content is interfering with long-range scanners. Our ships can navigate it safely, but they won't be able to track us accurately within the field. Perfect. Marcus turned to the crew. Execute Phase 1. Scatter formation, full sublight thrust. Make it look like we're panicking. The Calarian officers moved with fluid precision, their hands dancing through the crystalline control interfaces. The Loyalist fleet broke apart, ships seemingly fleeing in different directions. Marcus could almost feel the Shadowclave commander's satisfaction as they moved to pursue. Enemy ships taking the bait, a tactical officer reported. They're splitting up to chase our scattered vessels. Marcus nodded, watching the enemy formations break apart. Now for the tricky part. Signal the fleet, execute Phase 2. What looked like a chaotic retreat suddenly transformed into a carefully choreographed dance. The Loyalist ships dove into the asteroid field, using the massive rocks as cover. But instead of continuing their flight, they began a complex series of maneuvers that Marcus had spent hours planning with Thane. The Shadowclave commanders are too used to fighting traditional battles, Marcus explained to Kira, who watched with intense focus. They expect us to either stand and fight or run away. They don't expect us to think like a cargo hauler who's had to outsmart pirates. The young sovereign's silver eyes gleamed. And what do cargo haulers know that military commanders don't? That sometimes the best way to win isn't to overpower your enemy, Marcus replied, a slight smile crossing his face. It's to let them defeat themselves. The Shadowclave ships pushed deeper into the asteroid field, their superior firepower useless against targets they couldn't properly track. The Loyalist fleet's smaller, more maneuverable vessels used the asteroids as both cover and weapons, their energy weapons superheating the mineral-rich rocks and causing them to explode into clouds of debris. Enemy ships are reporting shield damage from debris impacts, Thane announced. Their formation is breaking down. Marcus leaned forward. Now. All ships execute Phase 3. The Loyalist fleet suddenly emerged from multiple directions, catching the scattered Shadowclave vessels in a perfectly coordinated crossfire. The crystal-powered weapons of the Calarian warship struck with devastating precision, targeting the weak points in the enemy shields that had been created by the asteroid debris. 2 Shadowclave cruisers went dark almost immediately, their power cores shutting down to prevent catastrophic overload. A third managed to fire back, but its shots went wide as more debris clouded their sensors. Enemy fleet is in full retreat, Thane reported, unable to keep a note of satisfaction from his voice. 2 ships disabled, 1 severely damaged, 2 withdrawing at maximum speed. A cheer went up from the bridge crew, but Marcus kept his eyes on the tactical display until the last enemy ship disappeared into hyperspace. Only then did he allow himself to relax slightly. "Secure the disabled vessels," he ordered. "Their crews may have valuable intelligence about Shadowclave operations." Kira stepped forward, placing a small hand on Marcus's arm. "You turned their strength into a weakness, their confidence into a trap. Perhaps now you understand why the heart chose you." Marcus shook his head. "I just did what I've always done, found a way to survive against bigger, stronger opponents. But we got lucky. The Shadowclave won't underestimate us again." "No," Thane agreed, his expression grave. "They will come back in greater numbers, with strategies designed to counter such tactics. But you have given us something we have not had since the coup, a victory." As if to emphasize his words, the crystalline structures throughout the bridge pulsed with brilliant light, responding to the crew's elevated emotions. Marcus watched the display, feeling a strange mix of pride and apprehension. He had won his first battle as Star Guardian, but he knew this was just the beginning. "Have our engineering teams analyze the disabled Shadowclave ships," he said finally. "I want to know everything about their capabilities, their weaknesses, and any modifications they've made to counter our technology." "And Commander Thane?" "Yes, Star Guardian. Prepare a training program. If I'm going to command this fleet, I need to understand every aspect of Calarian ships and tactics. We may have survived this fight, but the real war is just beginning." Kira's silver eyes seemed to look straight through him. "You are learning quickly, Star Guardian. But remember, it was not your knowledge of tactics that won this battle. It was your ability to think differently, to see possibilities where others saw only obstacles. That is why you were chosen. That is why you will lead us home." Marcus gazed out at the asteroid field where debris from the battle still drifted like glittering stars. He had spent years avoiding entanglements, responsibilities, anything that might tie him down. Now he was bound by an ancient alien law to protect a child ruler and lead a war fleet. But strangely, for the first time in years, he felt like he was exactly where he needed to be. The war room aboard the Celestial Dawn hummed with tension as Marcus studied the intelligence reports from their latest reconnaissance missions. 2 months had passed since his first victory against the Shadowclave, and each day had brought new challenges and lessons. "Their fleet movements make no sense," he muttered, watching the patterns of enemy ships across the holographic star map. "They're leaving key systems virtually undefended while concentrating forces in empty sectors." Commander Thane stood at his side, his armor reflecting the shifting lights of the tactical display. "Perhaps they seek to draw us into a trap." "No," Marcus shook his head, "it's something else. These deployments, they remind me of something." He closed his eyes, remembering years of navigating trade routes. "They're acting like cargo ships trying to hide their real destination." Kira, who had grown noticeably taller in the past months, stepped closer to the display. "Explain." "When haulers want to keep their route secret, they make a lot of obvious moves in the wrong direction. They want anyone watching to think they're headed somewhere they're not." Marcus's eyes snapped open. "Show me the location of known Calarian sacred sites." The map shifted, highlighting dozens of locations in soft blue light. Most had fallen to the Shadowclave during the coup, but a few remained contested or under Loyalist control. There, Marcus pointed to a seemingly insignificant system near the edge of Calarian space. The Temple of First Light. What's its significance? Kira's silver eyes widened. It houses the Mirror of Ages, an artifact said to be able to verify true royal bloodlines. The Shadowclave claimed it was destroyed during the coup. But if it wasn't, Thane interjected, they would need it to legitimize their rule. Without proof of royal authority, many systems remain resistant to their control. Marcus studied the surrounding sectors, noting the subtle patterns in enemy ship movements. They're planning to take it. All these other deployments are just noise to mask their real target. He straightened, decision made. Signal the fleet. We're going to beat them there. Hours later, the Loyalist fleet dropped out of hyperspace near the Temple of First Light. The ancient structure floated in space, its crystalline architecture resembling a frozen explosion of light and geometry. Despite its beauty, Marcus focused on the tactical situation. Status report. No sign of Shadowclave forces yet, a sensor officer reported. But our long-range arrays are detecting hyperspace disturbances. They're coming. Marcus nodded, his mind already running through possibilities. Deploy the fleet in defense pattern echo. But I want our new modifications ready. Over the past weeks, Marcus had worked closely with Calarian engineers to adapt some old smugglers' tricks to their advanced technology. The result was a series of innovations that had shocked the traditionally minded military officers but had proven devastatingly effective. Young Sovereign, he turned to Kira, I need you and your guards to board the temple. If the Mirror of Ages is as important as you say, we can't risk the Shadowclave getting their hands on it. Kira nodded solemnly. Be careful, Star Guardian. The Shadowclave will have sent their best for this. As if summoned by those words, space tore open in multiple locations as Shadowclave warships emerged from hyperspace. The enemy fleet was massive, at least 30 capital ships supported by swarms of fighters. They're hailing us, communications reported. The holographic display shifted to show a tall Calarian male wearing ornate armor. His skin was darker than most, with patterns that pulsed an angry red. So, he sneered, the human who plays at commanding our ships. I am Admiral Vexthor of the True Empire. Surrender now, and I may let your crews live as servants. Marcus met his gaze steadily. Interesting offer, but I have a counter-proposal. Retreat now, and I won't have to embarrass you in front of your entire fleet. Vexthor's expression darkened. You dare dash. Actually, I do dare, Marcus cut him off. See, while you've been busy playing politics, I've been learning about Calarian ships. Did you know that your crystal tech has some fascinating properties when exposed to certain radiological frequencies? The Admiral's eyes widened slightly, the first sign of uncertainty. Open fire. Destroy them all. Now. Marcus commanded. As the Shadowclave fleet launched their attack, the Loyalist ships activated their modified systems. Waves of carefully calibrated radiation pulsed outward, invisible to normal sensors but devastating to the crystalline technology at the heart of Calarian vessels. The effect was immediate. Shadowclave ships began to drift out of formation as their control systems went haywire. Some fired weapons at random, others lost power to their engines. The carefully coordinated attack dissolved into chaos. All ships, execute attack pattern Sigma, Marcus ordered. Target their command and control systems. Let's show them what happens when you underestimate human ingenuity. The battle that followed would be remembered in Calarian history as the Battle of First Light, a turning point in the Civil War. The Loyalist fleet, though outnumbered, moved with precision and purpose, systematically dismantling the larger enemy force with tactics no Calarian commander would have ever considered. As the last Shadowclave ship retreated in disgrace, Kira's voice came over the comm, Star Guardian, we've secured the Mirror of Ages. And, there's something else you need to see. Marcus stood before the Mirror of Ages, its crystalline surface rippling like liquid starlight. The ancient artifact towered over them in the temple's central chamber, its presence filling the space with an otherworldly energy. Kira stood beside him, their silver eyes fixed on the mysterious surface. "What exactly am I looking at?" Marcus asked, watching patterns of light dance across the mirror's face. "The mirror shows more than mere reflections," Kira explained. "It reveals the true nature of those who stand before it." The Shadowclave feared it because it would expose their lies. They turned to Marcus. "But it has shown us something unexpected about you." The patterns in the mirror shifted, forming complex geometries that seemed to reach into infinity. Commander Thane, who had joined them in the chamber, dropped to one knee. "Impossible," the warrior breathed. "Those are the patterns of the First Fleet, the ships that carried our ancestors across the stars." Marcus stepped closer to the mirror, drawn by a strange familiarity in the dancing lights. "I've seen these patterns before. In my dreams, since I was a child. I always thought it was just my imagination." "The mirror never lies," Kira said softly. "You carry within you a fragment of our oldest bloodline, a legacy of a time when humans and Calarians first met among the stars. That is why the heart responded to you. That is why you can interface with our technology so naturally." Before Marcus could process this revelation, alarms blared throughout the temple. A tactical officer's voice crackled over the comm, multiple hyperspace signatures detected. "The entire Shadowclave armada is converging on our position." Marcus snapped into action, the weight of revelation giving way to immediate necessity. "How many ships?" "Over 50 capital ships, Star Guardian. They've called in everything they have." Thane's expression was grim. "They must have realized what the mirror's revelation means. If word spreads that a human carries ancient Calarian blood, their entire claim to power crumbles," Kira finished. "They have no choice but to destroy us all." Marcus studied the tactical display, mind racing. The enemy fleet was approaching in a massive sphere formation, designed to prevent any escape. Their own forces, though proven in battle, were vastly outnumbered. But as he watched the enemy approach, something clicked in his mind. The patterns in the mirror, the dreams he'd had since childhood, the strange intuition that had guided his tactics, they were all connected. "Commander Thane," he said suddenly, "the temple's defense systems. They're powered by the same crystal technology as our ships, aren't they?" "Yes, but they haven't been activated in centuries. We don't even know if they still function." Marcus smiled. "Oh, they'll function. Kira, I need you to use the heart. Connect it to the temple's systems. I think I know what to do." As the young sovereign placed the crystal into an ancient receptacle, Marcus closed his eyes, letting instinct guide him. He placed his hands on the temple's control interface, and suddenly he could feel everything, every ship in their fleet, every defense system in the temple, all connected through the living crystal technology that was somehow part of his own heritage. The Mirror of Ages pulsed with blinding light as the Shadowclave fleet opened fire. But their weapons never reached their targets. The temple's ancient defenses roared to life, projecting a shield unlike anything seen in modern times. Within that shield, the Loyalist fleet began to move in perfect synchronization, their formations matching the patterns Marcus had seen in the mirror. By the first light, Thane whispered, watching as Marcus directed the battle with instincts born from 2 civilizations' worth of legacy. The Loyalist ships danced through space in impossible patterns, their weapons firing in perfect harmony with the temple's defenses. Crystal technology that had been dormant for millennia awakened, responding to the presence of both royal blood and ancient human connection. The Shadowclave fleet, for all its numerical superiority, found itself facing something beyond their understanding, the combined legacy of 2 species, channeled through a man who had earned his place among the stars through a simple act of kindness. The battle that followed would be remembered not just for its decisive outcome, but for what it represented. As the last Shadowclave ship fell silent, its crew surrendering in the face of power they couldn't comprehend, a new chapter in Calarian history began. Marcus stood in the temple's chamber, watching as news of the victory spread throughout the empire. Systems that had remained neutral began pledging allegiance to Kira. The revelation of his heritage, combined with the spectacular defeat of the Shadowclave Armada, had shattered the usurper's hold on power. So, he said to Kira, "What happens now?" The young sovereign smiled. "Now we rebuild. The old divisions between our peoples were artificial, created by those who feared what we could become together. You have proven that humanity and the Calarian Empire are stronger united than apart." Marcus looked at his reflection in the mirror of ages, seeing both who he had been, a simple cargo hauler who chose to help a child in need, and who he had become, Star Guardian, protector of an empire, and living proof that the greatest changes often come from the smallest choices. "Together then," he said, and the temple's crystals sang with the promise of a new dawn.